Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself this starter farm. It takes a lot of cobblestone and some mossy cobblestone, but otherwise it's surprisingly simple to do and goes on all terrain. So right into it, we have a house to start. Very simplistic, and here's what we want out of the house. You see here, it's a path, and it's just some cobblestone and gravel. Nothing crazy. Very simple blocks to get. So when we go from the house, we want it to arc all across our open fields nearby. They do not need to be perfectly flat, but they need to be flat enough that you could walk around on it nicely. So like this is good enough. You might also want to flatten some areas if they're a little bit sharp, if you get what I mean. But we have this, and we're just going to go through lots of cobblestone, lots of gravel. You probably want to go to gravelly hills or maybe the ocean floor, something like that, where you can get a lot of gravel quickly, because we're going to need a lot of it for these paths. Fortunately, the rest of the build does not need any. So right here, it curls around the building like a cat's tail, and make sure it doesn't get too close to any nearby outlines, like the podzol and coarse dirt you see around the house. Just make sure you're not overwriting any of those. We're going to reuse those for this tutorial. Additionally, we want it to arc across like my cursor just did to make a Y shape if you didn't go far enough with your build. So we have that, and we have two paths. From here, what we want to do is mark our entrances to the farms. The reason being is because these farms are not going to be square. They're going to take up whatever space you have, like my cursor is doing. If you have a big, flat, somewhat hilly area like this, then you can do it just fine on that. So you see here, our cobblestone determines where we're going to start building. Run through, and we'll have 5 of them. You can do 6 or even 7 in order to make sure you have stuff for pitcher plants. But for now, let's start nice and simple. This is just a bit of cobblestone to mark our boundaries. So, marking our boundaries here, just a bunch of cobblestone. And you can make these boundaries any shape you want. Right here, we have a blob. And I'm going to tell you this in advance. This is not a very good shape for our terrain. Although it seems fine, there's a bit of a problem. We have more terrain to work with. Think about it. What are you going to fill up all this terrain with? If you needed more room for something else, you can always chop down some trees. So we have this, and we're going to make a weird oblong shape like this, go through some trees, and what do you know? We have what looks like Ditto from Pokemon. But yeah, we have that, and we're going to need a few more of them. Make them bigger or smaller depending on what crops you need. So like this, we just make sure we have 5 of them. 1 for wheat, 1 for carrots, potatoes, beetroot, and then our stem fruits. Nothing for the pitcher plants though. But make sure that if you're going to be growing pitcher plants and other things, well, make a plot for them. And this is where a lot of the build goes into. I spent many hours on this. This is the boulder section. So on our borders, we lump up a bunch of stairs and slabs, just like this. And this seems like, okay, we're gonna lump some of them and it looks cool and all. Well, we're gonna have to do this for the entire thing. And this can get really long and pricey. This is the part of the build that makes me question whether it's a starter or not. But everything else was easy to do, so I decided to call it anyways. So this is just a boulder, and we have 2 of them. Make sure that these go across the whole build, connect nicely, lots of cobblestone, lots of slabs. Don't worry about any other blocks onto them right now. We just want this for the whole build. And it's going to be tough, but it looks really good. This looks super professional. And yeah, it takes a lot of cobblestone, but I can assure you it is well worth your time. If you know you're not going to be able to do the boulders, you can always remove the stairs and slabs from them and just make them thick blobs of cobblestone. Then, let's go in and add some moss to them. Remember, moss farms are very easy to build, so you can always get enough for this, or you can grow some vines. We have all that, and we're just going to plop them onto the existing boulders. We're going to copy this exactly. We're going to have the lanterns, the coarse dirt, the grass, the podzol, everything you see here, even the firefly bushes, we're going to copy directly onto this build. You might want to go past your other builds and add these boulders as well if you want to, just to make sure everything looks like it was built by the same builder. So we have all that, and You might think it's immediately time to till once you do that, but there's still a bit more. We want to make sure these are plots that are more than just some crops, so let's add a bit more. Right here, we have all the boulders in, and you can see it's pretty serene now. Although it takes a while, this is the biggest part you can do to make your builds look good. Lots of lighting, lots of coarse dirt, podzol, grass, whatnot. So let's change it today. And as I said, there's still more work to do before we can actually start planting crops. And you might want to set up temporary farms just to make sure you don't starve in the process. You can add trees, but don't plant them. Build them instead. And you might want to go back and do this later if you really need the crops now. So we mark out this 3x3 area, and we put down some wood and then some slabs. Make sure it's the omnidirectional wood, and then we add some branches. We go like this, and with the branches, well, it just looks like a dead tree. Let's lather it with leaves, and we can see just leaves. I'm not going to cut this down terribly much because I know it can get really tough to build trees. I struggle with it too. So let's just build right onto it. In the meantime, just talking about other things. So I'm actually going on vacation very shortly at the time of filming. And I am preparing another video after this one to make sure it's uploaded. I'm going to be gone for the entirety of the next week. I'm going out to the Caribbean, which is really nice. And, well, I've always wanted to go on a big Royal Caribbean ship, and I managed to get on one of the biggest ones they have. So, hooray. Just wanted to talk about my life here because, well, after 5 years, I didn't really talk about myself at all on this channel. So, a little bit of personality into this video. But you can see here, some of the leaves are hanging down. We're going to add some to the top now. And we want to give some nice faces to it, where it looks more like a natural big tree, if you get what I mean. And then, once we're done with all this, we'll have to go back and address some things. Right here, it's a bit flat on top, so let's just round it out with 2 extra layers or so. We have that in, and then we have a tree, but this side here don't look so good. Looks very jumpy, if you get what I mean. It's not round, it's almost like diamond shaped. Be careful about that. So smooth them out by destroying and adding blocks in the nearby areas to make sure that they look less blocky per se. So once you have all that going, then you want to add a bit of birch leaves to it to give it a bit of contrast. It's not just a normal oak tree, it has some dark leaves too. So more leaves to it, and eventually we'll have something really nice. And with that, we have the tree. We can add some terracotta or resin clumps to it to give it a bit more personality, but I'm going to leave it as a normal modified oak tree. We can add multiple of these around, and I recommend adding things to your plots to make them more than just wheat and potatoes. So now, added some water, added lanterns into the water, tilled the soil, and got rid of the grass on it, all hydrated. And do you think now can we actually plant crops? No. So right here, we have an issue. Under these cobblestone blocks, we need to put more cobblestone because the tilling has exposed a single pixel under them. It seems inconsequential, but I can assure you it is a big deal. Same thing here. On the borders where our terrain is not perfectly flat, let's add some slabs. Spruce could work, but I think dark oak is a better choice. I'd recommend destroying the blocks under where you're going to put them and replace them with dark oak, and then we put the slabs on top. That way it's a more seamless transition. A good way to access these blocks under the boulders is to do /attribute at self scale base equal 0.1. That way you're really small like this. Because we left everything well lit, you can see here the crops can grow even at night. Of course it's sped up footage, but still, you can see we have a really nice plot here. Missed a little bit of wheat here and there, but still, you can always just add that real quick. But yeah, nice and golden, reducing the tick speed so it actually grows normally, and the tree here, it looks really nice. And this is only one of 5 fields. The next 3 fields are identical really. They're just the same thing but with different crops, and effectively do not have different instructions. Do exactly the same thing, just with a different seed each time. By the way, when you're collecting, especially in survival mode, you can see a little bit of an issue with the water, so I just added lily pads above. Because they have lanterns, you can't just go in and add slabs. However, you can add carpet to make sure it blends in. Yellow carpet would work really well actually, I wish I had thought of that beforehand. But anyways, lily pads and lanterns looks really nice, and now it's time to go on to the other plots. So right here, we have ourselves the potato plot, looking roughly the same, the carrot plot, and then the beetroot plot. For those weird corner pieces that you just aren't sure what to do with, like there's 3 blocks of farmland and you have to add water, don't bother filling them in, just a bit more dark oak. So we have all this in place now, and we can see some lanterns on the trees, lanterns everywhere, and we have a nice serene path. And finally, we have to worry about plot number 5. This is where the melons and pumpkins go. And fortunately, the boulders are nowhere near as big of a hassle in this area. In fact, you could potentially go without them, but of course it looks very professional, I'd still keep them. So place down some water, lanterns, then the water, then the lily pads or carpet, and then we want to till the area surrounding them and put seeds in them, alternating, unless you have a dedicated pumpkin and a dedicated melon patch. We have all these, and now let's place them around. Additionally, add yourself some coarse dirt and podzol to make sure it looks good, because you can see kind of green here. By the way, I did add some large terracotta blobs to represent mega pumpkins and mega melons, you know, those big competitions about 1,000-pound pumpkins which are surprisingly not edible. But yeah, we have ourselves the big plants here, and then coarse dirt, podzol, and you'll be all done. Don't forget, green terracotta works very well for stems. With this last plot here, this is a functionally finished farm. It looks really nice here, especially from above. And of course, you can always expand upon it. Do you want to add some stables? Well, I'm doing that in the next few videos. And you can add windmills, towers, more houses, build a village around this. This is of course a good centerpiece for many things, not just functionality. In fact, functionally it can get quite annoying. But still, it is a really good thing to get you off the ground initially, and you will not run out of crops. So now, we have something else. We need some extra decorations like scarecrows, 3 fences, a hay bale, pumpkin, and then we have some string to hold up some carpets, and then we gave him a dark oak hat. Let's add tons and tons of little details around here. And this is not an exhaustive list. I cannot come up with every single little thing you can do here. Like I saw this online, netherrack plus trapdoors equals beetroot. Place some of those near your beetroot areas, tells a little bit of a story. We can add piles of hay, or piles of melons, add the sea pickles to the pumpkins to give them their gourd stems, all those things. So now, let's go through and add each and every one of them. We can have a wheelbarrow, as simple as it gets, and then we can fill it up with some compost. Yeah, there's too much to cover for every little thing. So now, I'm just going to show one last extra thing before I move on to the time lapses. If we have some hay here, and then some campfires, we can place down some signs. But notice how they open the interface, that's annoying. Now, what we can do is put a space in the interface, control middle click, and now it does not open the interface. Much better. It makes it much easier to build with large amounts of signs. Let's add tons and tons of little details around, just to make sure that this build stays, well, cozy, feels lived in, not just like you followed a tutorial. And this is a big place where I'd expect your build to deviate from. And that's perfectly fine, encouraged actually. I intentionally do not give exact instructions for the majority of my builds, because I want you guys to make your own farms and houses like that, where they look similar to mine. Of course, that's the point of a tutorial, but that way they're yours, not just the one you found online. You can follow it and still say it is your build. And that makes your world feel a lot more like it's yours, rather than just some people online's. So keep that in mind. And here we have ourselves a little bit of a wheelbarrow carriage thing, not entirely sure what it's called. But of course, adding these little details here and there helps immensely when it comes to making your build feel lived in. And then even once you already have your automatic farms and you just don't need this area anymore, it's still cozy. It adds to your world, because ultimately you can set up an automatic crop farm very easily in Minecraft. So I wanted to make sure this build was a little bit more than just that. It's a set piece that connects your whole world together. And even if you already are eating golden carrots and have tons of other farms or villagers, still I can say safely that this is, well, a good thing to put in just about any world. Even if you're doing something a bit more futuristic, having these big areas, even if they don't use boulders, using some sort of other barrier, they help a lot. Add some lanterns, maybe you can add a well under construction right now, windmills, all those firefly bushes and the piles of plants. Make this feel like this is a place where the community is centered around. Write a story. I mean, I'm a writer, that's a little bit easier for me to say, but try to make something. And you can see there an extra cobblestone area for when I want to add more things to this area. That way, I can add the pitcher plants. So hooray! We have ourselves a completed farmland. And it's the end of today's video. So, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.